Welcome, everyone, to District Dialogue, a podcast by the Community Foundation, focused on highlighting the voices shaping the future of education. Welcome to District Dialogue, a podcast powered by the Community Foundation, focused on highlighting the voices shaping the future of education. Today, I'm joined by Chris Wood. Chris Wood serves as a technical education instructor specializing in building and construction trades at John O'Connell High School within the San Francisco Unified School District. First off, Chris, thanks for joining me today.
My pleasure.
Chris, if you don't mind, I'd love to get a little bit of background of not just what your role is currently, but what led you into education, just to give the audience that perspective as well.
Well, I've had a pretty varied career, but I was a builder for many, many years and taught night classes at the local City College, San Francisco. And the district approached City College looking for an instructor that would be willing to design, build, and run a building construction trades program for the high school. They had a dedicated site that they had built for it, and my dean at the college, I think, rightly picked me. I don't think any other college instructors would be willing to teach high school, and that's what started it all off. I looked at the site, thought about it, and decided to go ahead and do it. I had closed my business, kind of semi-retired, and decided to do a little give back.
That's excellent. Was there a specific focus as it relates to, construction itself? Was it, commercial or real estate, or what aspect were you contributing in?
I was a residential remodeler in Marin County, and but the focus largely for this initially was to prepare students to become carpenters and then with the support of the local 22, the Carpenters Union, get students prepared, get them indentured in the union, and then find them jobs in industry here. Most of the jobs that the students were being prepared for was they would be working on large commercial projects. My industry partners are all, big construction firms building, airports and skyscrapers and that scale. So that's what the students would be stepping into.
Excellent. Understood. And just to transition directly into, some of the student-facing aspects, what do you found to be the current level of engagement and interest as it relates to students, pursuing, trades and careers within construction itself?
Well, it's an interesting question. This program at the high school, the students have a choice of 4 different pathways at our high school. So they have to choose one of 4. So you got to kind of ask yourself, what are the odds of a high school kid really wanting to do any one of those? Seeing as none of them are influencers or hip hop producers or, the stuff that most kids are thinking they really want to do. So what are the odds of getting a classroom full of kids that really want to be carpenters? And as it turns out, it's pretty slim, although better than the national average. But I get some kids mostly that want to do something that's completely different from what they're doing in school every day. And then my objective is, well, a couple objectives, but one of them is to teach them the opportunities that exist within construction. San Francisco is a hugely union town, and the prevailing wage here, a carpenter working full-time can live in San Francisco and afford San Francisco, and it's a pretty expensive place to live. So that's attractive for most of the kids right off the bat. What they learn in my program is that construction is hard work, it's dirty work, and it requires the sort of stamina and interest level to stay there just to be able to do it. So that's what I teach them, is that, hey, construction is hard, but there's lots of opportunity. And then on the way, they get to get the pleasure and satisfaction of generative work. The students all build things, they finish things, and then we can probably talk about that more later, but they're all public-facing projects. They're all sustainable projects, and a pretty good program. They like it. They like the class. They like that it's not like any of their other classes. Um, yeah, so they like the class. As far as whether high school students are ready to step into the trades, big step, big step for the average high school kid.
I'm sure, and that's something that, to your point in regards to that initial exposure around it being a contrast to their existing world. I'm sure that's attractive, but to your point, it's dirty work, it's hard work. But I think that's something that really is being as an influx, or excuse me, there's an increase as it relates to individuals wanting to go into more of just trade-based programs overall. If you could speak to what other trades do exist besides the construction, or what other pathways that you mentioned on that for?
Well, at the school, we have a culinary and entrepreneurial pathway. We have a public service pathway, and we have there's one more, a health and behavioral sciences pathway. So the students that are more academic lean toward the public service or the health and behavioral sciences, and the other is and then the more, the job oriented or career oriented, as we like to say here, students gravitate toward the others. Um, the pathways, most of them, mine isn't, but most of them are combined pathways where there's an English teacher and a science teacher, or an English teacher and a social studies teacher. So the curriculum is an integrated curriculum, project-based curriculum. It's pretty leading edge as far as education goes. We're kind of the gold standard for it in the district, and we're pretty successful with it. But those are the other ones. Within my pathway, I introduce them to some electrical work. I introduce this to a lot of plumbing work, concrete and carpentry. And carpentry is the primary that I teach. So in mine, that's the sort of trade skills they're getting. And then the construction industry as a whole, which even the ones that are going to be college bound, I show them the opportunities for graduating college students in the construction industry.
Got it. Thank you for that background. That's actually a pretty wide array of options for the students and young people that are engaged. And again, I think that's awesome. A little bit of background on our organization for not only you but the listeners as well. We focus on project based hands-on training as it relates to the digital entertainment field. But we found that even within the skills that can be learned in this medium or the medium that we pursue, they can contribute directly to others. And so I'll expound on that a little later. But actually, just to lead into that, have you found, or maybe what changes have you seen that are being used to both teach and execute in these different mediums? I'm sure historically it was a little bit more antiquated as it relates to the planning process, or either whether it's design or again kind of that blueprinting process. Do you all use any technology as it relates to either of those elements, whether it's design, blueprinting, kind of being able to uh, prepare as it relates to any type of construction or build out elements?
I don't do a lot of design with my uh, classes at the high school during the day.
Okay.
Um, I've found that the amount of time I had, if I had all day, I would most certainly teach them more. I do teach them how to read detailed drawings. I have them do detailed drawings and scale drawings. I don't focus on it a lot, um, for a variety of reasons, mostly time. I
Mm.
do have real projects that we have to finish for clients, and so I'm kind of under the gun as far as that goes. In my after school class, which is a class that I have, I teach in combination with a CBO and arts organization, Youth Art Exchange. We I teach that together with a architect, and we typically have a client. Last year it was a dance crew that wanted us to build them a float, design and build them a float for Carnival, which was a great project. We're going to do that again this year. And in that class, we do significantly more drawing production. We don't use a lot of electronics and digital.
Sure.
I find it kind of tracks the students. Although, our students are digitally literate, um, it's largely confined to their phones. Most of them, digitally literate doesn't mean that they really know how to use drawing programs or that sort of thing, which is where almost all design is done now,
Yeah.
professionally. So because I don't want to teach a coding class or a technical drawing software, like a Revit or a Fusion 360 or
Mhm.
any of those, um, largely because I'm old and I don't really know how to use them anyway. Um, but I don't really want to put the amount of time into it that it would take. I
Yeah.
really want them to get out there, get physical, and do it. And ultimately, that was the original purpose of this whole pathway, was to really provide a link between the program here at John O'Connell and City College's construction programs, and then the union.
Got it. Understood. Yeah, that's definitely understood there, and I can definitely concur just in regards to various softwares that exist on multiple trades in the design piece. I kind of feel the same way as it relates to CAD softwares. It's something that definitely relevant, but to your point, there's a lot of creativity in it, and it can just in some cases take individuals away from the actual product that needs to be created or focused on. I heard you mention some of the CBOs that you all work with. How does the local community play a role as a whole within your high school's program?
In my program, quite a bit. We had a board with it's been inactive since COVID, but I'm contemplating reinvigorating it. We called it Tech 21. And that was a group of a big group. It had the San Francisco public City of San Francisco's Public Works, who is still a partner, the facilities within the district, which is a pretty big operation. They take care of all the schools. This San Francisco Public Utilities Commission, and then others. The big contractors, the Webcors, Swinnertons, Domes, Turners, Cahills. Uh, of the world, the big contractors in the city, and they would all come together. We would talk about what they need from their apprentices, what they're expecting, and how can I do it? How can we get kids ready to do it? And then they also help by providing material support, internships, site trips, site visits, and in many cases, jobs for my students once they graduate.
Got it. No, that's a, a large list, and I definitely see. Well, I'm familiar with a few of those organizations, so I see how that could contribute in a meaningful way as it relates to the student progression and their learning process. I heard internships, but even prior to that, what are some of the kind of key takeaways that you want each of your students to be able to demonstrate or be able to articulate, whether it's discipline specific or discipline agnostic? If you could speak to that.
Well, I like to say that my primary I've got two learning objectives really.
Okay.
I keep it pretty simple. The first one is I know what to do when I don't know is the first answer.
Yeah.
Because I don't know is always the first answer. I said, okay, well that's good, but that's where we start, not where we stop. And then really, I want them to learn the real joy in generative work. And I mentioned that earlier. Just the joy of when you're building something, it's done. Before it was a stack of lumber or metal or sheet material, and now it's a tiny house, or now it's a recycling bin structure, or now it's a water catchment system or something like that. And um, because that's what sustained me. I know this to be true. I know that it's something that people get a lot of pride out of, and it will keep you there. It'll take you through the hard times when it's hard. And there's something like that at the end. It's good for you. So those are real key things that I want them to do, and they learn those things whether they kind of like it or not. Like I tell a story. This is a good story. I hope we have time here. It's not that long. But one of the first things we built was this tiny house. is now, we call it the green. We used to call it the greenhouse, but the green tiny house or something like that. And for about 3 months, the kids were just framing, just cutting 2x4s, cutting them to, size, doing the math behind it. I was working with a geometry teacher and building frames. And every day they'd walk in, the usual thing, kind of a little bit slow, a little bit late. What are we doing today, Mr. Wood? And I'd tell them what they were doing. And then the one day, once we had finished the frames and we went out, and it was like a barn raising, we did it old style. We raised it up onto the platform we had built. And I'm not kidding you. The next day, all the kids came in and said, "Mr. Wood, when are we putting the roof on? When are we putting the siding on?" And I knew that I caught them. They were looking for completion. They were stoked. They saw something go up. And, so my learning experience there was, get them as quickly as possible to that place. Right. And then they'll ask, "What's our next project?" And I know that I've got them when that's the sort of thing going on.
I love that. Yeah, to your point, it's just that uh, progressive, kind of progress. Like if you can, like I say that, being able to see, see their own efforts start to materialize into something real in every regard, and especially in my world as well. That's where you really start to see that buy-in, or you see that aha moment of all those previous steps, and then leading into something visceral or tangible. I think that's great. If you could, please kind of expound on some of the different projects that you all have worked on. I heard you mention both tiny homes, water catching systems. So it started off with tiny homes. Where did it go from there? And are there different like age groups that you have excuse me, different projects that you have certain age groups focus on, or is it all in one for one project?
I do have different age groups, and my pathway, which is my students, are juniors and seniors, and currently they're in two different classes. One is 2 hours, the other is 1 hour. And then I also have what we call wood design, which is they get their art credit for that, and that's kind of like a wood shop, but a little bit more artistic. So we build mobiles, we build skateboards, we build bandsaw boxes, we build just straight up art projects. We're doing a Ruth Asawa inspired design project. We're also going to build towers this year from wood, where the kids will just design those, and then other stuff that just comes up as students progress and get better. We go from bandsaw boxes to, mitered corners and some dovetails and that sort of thing. Woodworking things. The pathway, the BCT, the Building Construction Trades pathway, the juniors and seniors, I've kind of gotten a sweet spot of projects. The it can be expensive running a construction program, and instead of relying on my budget in career tech ed, which is a good budget and more than most teachers get, but it's not enough to really build a lot of projects, especially when you've got 50 kids a day that need to be swinging hammers or cutting material. So I've worked out partnerships with the district. We build uh, these enclosures for the big 64-gallon recycling bins, and they're weatherproof. They can be put outside, and they enclose the bins so that we can put them on campuses, so that the custodial staff has a place where it's all kept, and they can pull it out and it's protected from the rain. And on that project, I can hang framing, sheathing, roofing, and painting. So and that's usually about a semester. And that's a pretty good intro to, basic uh, framing. We also do a project with the Watershed Project in SFUSD. So we do a stormwater management project with them, and with SFUSD and the Watershed Project, which is another community-based organization. And many years ago, we wrote a grant with SFPUC where they financed it. And then the Watershed Project and I developed curriculum, and we built a water catchment system here that waters our garden year round, rainwater catchment off our roof and off the roof of the shop. And then now, because how many of those can you build, right? Built one of those. And we put them on some of the other sheds that we've built over the years. But now we go out to middle schools And we've developed curriculum for the middle schools to teach or the elementary schools to teach their students about it. And I take my students and we work on their water catchment systems. Either we upgrade an existing one, we build them a new one, or we do other sort of stormwater management projects there.
Right.
And then we work on that, and then we come back, and when the cisterns are full at the end of the rainy season, we come back and work with the little ones, the first and second graders. We plant plants and we water it from the system, and those kids learn, hey, you can use rainwater to water plants. And my kids see what it's like to work with kids, which is none of them really want to do it. But then when they go out there and the kids are asking to hold their hands while they walk out to the project and that sort of thing, it kind of warms their hearts. It's good for them. So that's another one. And then I also have done work with the Park and Rec. We built little what we call mud kitchens. These small tables with sinks in them for the preschoolers to play with mud, which is really therapeutic. And note to kind of an aside is my kids I think get the same kick when I do our concrete projects. Hardest, hottest work they do, and they never complain about it. They complain about everything else, but that's the one thing they don't. And it's the hardest, dirtiest work they do. But anyway, so we did we do things like mud kitchens, benches, tables. And then with the SF Park, we also build now skate obstacles for the skate club for Park and Rec. And then we build them. They tell us what they want built. We build them and we keep them here. So we have a nice little skate park at RC. And we let them use them for street fairs and things like that. Um, and one of the results of having those kinds of partners and those kinds of projects is that I'm able to fund my program without asking the district for money. They pay for all the materials. They're all sustainable, green projects. They're all community, public facing. So they all kind of meet the gold standard for career tech ed, project based learning.
That's awesome. And I guess that's a note for the other listeners. Again, a large part of the audience are other teachers and educators at the district level or the school level. But that's great to hear that you've found a way to, again, support your program thoroughly through just providing value right back directly to the school district or to the local municipality. So kudos and hats off to you there.
I'm pretty proud of that, to tell you the truth. That came out of the noodle.
Yeah, nice. Awesome. Yeah, I would tell everyone that that's a good use case. You mentioned the water recycling piece. That kind of wanted me to lead to another question before I continue here. Have you seen this type of work with the construction and trades lead students or your participants to pursue other types of programs or even career paths? Maybe whether it's around social environment, the environmental elements or recycling. Have you seen that, or what other transferable kind of concepts are students taking away from this program?
Yeah, I have had some, sort of anecdotal reports, and some of the kids come back to see me. They like me. I don't, whatever. They come back and visit and I hear stories. And I also know when they're applying. We do get kids that go into environmental justice type work.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't, I have had one student, I think, a ways back that realized that doing rainwater catchment and stormwater, residential stormwater management could be a job. And I think he started a little business. I don't know how well it's going anymore. Uh, it was a while ago and I haven't heard from him. But they get kind of charged up. Kids like to save the world. And um, I think one of the things that I introduced through the stormwater management is just the need for it. It's always going to rain. There's always going to be uh, runoff to deal with. That we're always going to need drinking water. And I think that if you have kind of realized that's something that they might want to get into.
Yeah, great. That's great. And even for the individuals that have pursued career paths directly within the trade of construction, love to hear some, testimonials or some use cases of other students that you heard, being able to progress or their success to date. I'm sure there's a handful that you taught and educated.
Yeah, I actually, I put students directly into the local 22, which is Carpenters Union. I have a direct entry for them. They don't have to go to the training. And if I can find them a job, I can put them directly in the union. They walk right on to the job site.
Wow.
I have had um, over, over the last 14 years, I think I've put about maybe 12 to 14 kids directly in the union. Um, And of those, I've I know that I've got 5 or 6, journeymen out there, and I just heard from, 2 of them. One, a young woman that went through my program, is now a foreman with Habitat for Humanity, and another one who's a foreman at another shop in the city. So there's definitely some that have, taken it and moved on and
That's
tried.
great. Yeah, that's the part that I love and it matters to me as well. So again, congrats in that regard. That's more than just a program or activity. It's the starting point for their career. That's huge.
All right.
And if you can, local 22 I'm familiar with just based on some of our work with East Coast based, kind of unions. I know on the East Coast there's a lot more of the Teamsters. Do you provide kind of that direct introduction to any other organizations, or are you working with, like you mentioned, some of those larger commercial firms to also introduce maybe not again high schoolers to that job, but maybe to an apprenticeship type pathway or anything in that sort?
Well, the local 22, they get directly into an apprenticeship. I put them directly in a carpentry apprenticeship.
Okay.
I Through guest speakers and tours, they meet electricians, plumbers, and yeah, electricians, plumbers, and carpenters primarily. And let's see, as far as other types of, they go on a lot of sites. They see a lot of the construction going on. Um, as far as uh, I've forgotten exactly your question, Julian. To ask me again.
Just outside of local 22, what other kind of career opportunities are students introduced to directly?
Well, yeah, directly. I mean, we do a lot of site tours,
Yeah.
and we have a lot of guest speakers. And I always prime the guest speakers that say, "Look, I don't want you to just have talk about a job where they can show up and be a carpenter. I'd like you to bring in maybe some of your estimators, some of your project engineers. And whenever we do a site tour, we have a round table. Usually they'll buy lunch and we sit around a table and we'll have a project engineer who went through college. We'll have a project manager who went through college. We'll have an estimator. And then we'll also have some people that went through the files and all the different types of construction personnel. The one project I do is what I call my company research, and all the students that come through my pathway do it at some time or another, where they have to look at a big, like a global uh, construction or architectural engineering firm, and look at all the different jobs that are in there, and I make them list all of the jobs,
Yeah.
and 'cause I'll ask a kid, "You wanna be a doctor?" I said, "There's doctors that are hired by some of these places, right? Like, they need people on big job sites. They need people in their buildings sometimes. Any job you want, there's one in construction. Like, look, it's 11% of the world economy. That's a lot of jobs, right?
So
And it's not all just wearing bags. In fact, most of them aren't. And so that's something that I try to make really clear, and we talk about a lot. And like I say, when we do site tours, I have the people running the tour talk about it, and then when we're on site, and then when we have guest speakers, the same thing. So that's definitely part of my curriculum is to show them many ways that construction can, be a career path.
yeah, that's awesome. I'm all about one transferable skills, but then also again that kind of bridge moment where it's you could be exposed to not just a direct trade you might be thinking of, but other ways to contribute to the larger industry. And again, for us, digital entertainment is a breakdown of gaming and animation and a number of other fields. But we say the same thing. You can go into digital media marketing and a number of other roles without directly contributing into that technical trade as well. What do you find to be the most, kind of interested or engaged pathway? Is it the woodworking? Is it the, electrical element? Walk me through what you find most students gravitating towards as a whole, even while they're as students.
Well, I mean, I'm heavily carpentry focused. I mean, I'm a carpenter, and the amount of students that are interested in electrical every year is less than the ones that are interested in carpentry, and plumbing roughly about the same. Um, so I would say that most of my kids are going to be introduced mostly to woodworking and carpentry. Um, and but a lot of that's bandwidth. I have 3 hours a day.
Yeah.
I can do all of those trades. And so I can teach them kind of the basics of it. But because of the interest level and because of the way that I've set it up, I would say it's largely carpentry that is the trade skill that they get. But that said, it's a lot of what the industry partners really want. They're less concerned about how well my kids can mark, measure, lay out, cut, and fasten than they are about the soft skills. The I I mean every day talk about, look, it doesn't matter if in construction you're late like this. You're not going to have a job for very long. You miss a day and, you come back and say, oh, shoot, I missed the bus, but I couldn't catch the next one, that sort of thing. They'll say, that's fine. Come tomorrow and pick up 2 checks. You're gone. They'll fire you.
Mm.
And I say, and it's not a ton different in white collar jobs, right? Office jobs. They, these skills, the real thing that you need to learn is be on time, uh, be communicative with people. And even if you aren't working, act like you're working. And I don't mean that like facetiously. I'll tell them a joke. I'll say, hey, how did Caltrans lay off? How were they able to lay off 5,000 workers? I say they invented a shovel that stood up by itself. And, the kids kind of get it. But what it really means is when I have them working in a group of four, right? Even though there might only be one or two people holding tools, you guys have to stand next to them and be watching them and not be on your phones and not sitting down, because a foreman across the yard can see that you're either sitting down or on your phone. He knows you're not working, but
Yeah.
you're standing there. You may be part of the project. And I said, and it's the same thing in an office. The guy that's at the cooler all the time, the guy that's chatting with people all the time, we know who's working. Everybody knows who's working. Your boss is always going to know who the workers are. So at least look like you're working. And so those are the kinds of soft skills that I really try to, you know, get across to them.
That true story. I love that and the way you communicate it as well. Gives them a little bit of wiggle room, of course, as they're high school students, but it lets them know the non-negotiables. And you're right. The soft skills are ever present as it relates to the mandate or the kind of the mandatory skill set that's demanded or in demand rather for any type of employment.
Right. Like Woody Allen said, 80% of life is just showing up.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Show up on time and do what you say you're going to do, and you're going to be successful in a lot of regards. Yeah, that's great. I want to provide you a moment to go down Glory Road, whether it's within, some of your programs or projects with the school, or even as a professional, some of the things that you've been able to build and contribute to. Love to hear that and just kind of, learn as well what you're some of the projects you're most proud of.
At the school, really what I'm most proud of is setting up these evergreen projects. You know,
Yeah.
when I well, and to back up a little bit, when I took this job, it was like, okay, a job or teach part-time at City College or retire and, play tennis and go bike riding and that sort of thing. And And really, I'm kind of proud of the program I built there. I'd say that, when I was a contractor, I did a lot of remodels. I did a lot of new building, and there were some, some nice buildings, some beautiful remodels, big jobs, small jobs. Um, I built a lot of furniture in my life. I've done a lot of, just art pieces. But really, I, I, I'm becoming pretty proud of this program that I built here because it it getting the kind of recognition it needs to be something the district says, "Oh, that's a program that's important. We need to keep that thing going. We need
Yeah.
to keep supporting it." And when I ask for favors, I get favors. I mean, the 3-bin system is what we call the zero waste 3-bin system, the system we built for things. The I think the person that I direct answer to that is the head of facilities, which is I think there's only one person really above her. She answers to the superintendent.
Wow.
And I'm like, she's very happy I'm there. We divert a lot of the schools that we put those on are now diverting up to like 70% of their waste, which is huge.
Awesome. Wow.
And the district is mandated by the feds to get those kinds of numbers in their waste stream. And our project here is a big part of it. So the watershed stuff is great. When I see these little kids, my kids, I don't know what they remember from one day to the next, to be honest with you. But but they're high school kids. But the little ones, when we go on those campuses after those projects, you know, they are over the moon. I mean, these big high school kids coming in and helping them plant stuff. And, I ask teachers, I go, yeah, I hope that worked. They go, oh, they'll never forget this. Right. Cause they're at that age. And so I really kind of like that aspect of that project. And then I also kind of have a soft spot for skaters. I think that they are a much maligned subgroup of athletics in the US. And, uh, and I skated when I was in high school
Nice.
and a little bit in college, not much anymore. I break too easy. Um, but I find that a lot of those kids are sometimes just not motivated at all as students. But when they can come here and have a skate park to skate at during breaks and over lunch, and then have a pathway where their senior project is to build a custom skate obstacle, a ramp or a ledge or a bar or, all the different things they use, a half pipe. Um, that's pretty cool. That's a group that I like to help out. So those are kind of things that I'm proud of, really.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I have a large respect for skaters as well because the resilience that it takes to be a skater is something that I was early on. I said, nah, I don't think it's for me. I've fallen down enough. But yeah, large respect for this skater class. And Chris, it sounds like you're a bit of a rock star. I love the fact that, to your point, the young people remember and really gravitate, especially the younger students, like you mentioned, gravitate towards some of the work that you're doing. But at the district level, even it seems like your program's thriving and setting the example for the other educators out there. What are some of the things that you would want them to walk away with, whether they're in the construction and trade uh, kind of program itself or other CTE programs? What are some of your best practices you would want to leave with them?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, one of them is don't take the first no, right? Like
Yeah.
most of the things you ask for, especially in education, it can kind of be frustrating. A lot of educators, I caveat, I'm a little bit cynical about education. Um, or not education. I'm a big fan of education, but just kind of the educational institution. It's big, it's government run, and like all government things, there seems to be a real inertia. And to not take the first no, there's always going to be inertia that you have to push against if you want to do something different. And ask somebody else. Find the person that can say yes. And sometimes that person may not be in the school district. And then you bring the solution to the school district from outside. Um, And that's definitely possible. And one of the things everyone should know that's in the CTE field is that industry really wants to help. It makes them feel good. Um, they they don't really know what's happening in classrooms. I don't honestly think anybody who's out of high school really remembers what they were like in high school. Um, but they want to help. Everybody wants to help, and industry and many industries, like in San Francisco, many of them are required to. If they want to get city jobs, city building contracts, they have to give back somehow, and they like to do it. So don't be afraid to ask. Whatever it is, don't be afraid to ask, and and really, really, really work for your industry partners. Um, I've been pretty fortunate to work with the San Francisco organizations, the city, the school district, and the Department of Public Works, and the Public Utilities Union, Public Utilities Commission, um, as well as my other industry partners. But everybody likes to help, and whatever part they are in, whatever discipline they're trying to teach, whatever their pathway is, um, really work those things, take those opportunities, and look for them and be creative. And don't be afraid to ask. Send that email out. Send that email. I just sent out 6 emails today trying to find a job for one of my graduating seniors. I pursue work for them much more unabashedly than I ever did for myself when I was a kid. It's a lot easier to ask for somebody else.
Big time. Yeah. To your point, people like to help. And even just as I summarize that thought, it's, leverage your resources, but then also leverage your resourcefulness, right? So as you may be, faced with a no, how do you turn that no into a yes? How do you get creative? I love that. That's well said. And yeah, to your point, I push for young people's success and a different, with a different vigor than I definitely, pushed at that same age myself. It's been great to see them be able to take again those aha moments and turn them into real value for the industry. So I'll maybe pause to ask anything else that you love to share with the audience. Again, thinking through not only just the educator stakeholders, but maybe even some of the students that might be listening to this also.
Um, well, to the students, come to class on time. Just show up. Um, I do want to tell one other story about Take Career for an answer. So I teach a summer school class too. And my son took it one year, many years ago, when he was still in high school. He took my summer program, and it was when they were building the Salesforce Tower. And obviously there's some, my son's influence here, but he wanted to go in the Salesforce Tower. He thought it was a really cool, it was the tallest building in San Francisco. It's an incredible project. And so I reached out to the developer who was a contact. No, no, we're not doing any more sites. I said, okay, great. So I went to a concrete contractor that I knew. He was on there. No, no, we can't take anybody. Developer doesn't want it. So I said, all right, well, let's see. Who's the general on it? And I didn't know him, but I knew that he went to Cal Poly, which was my alma mater in engineering in the Wayback Machine. And so I called a buddy of mine who was still a very active engineer. And I said, hey, do you know this guy that is in charge of, that's in charge of the Tishman project? I forget what it's not Tishman who did it, but it was an engineering firm. He goes, oh yeah, that's so-and-so. He's a couple years ahead of us at Poly. And I said, do you have his contact? I said, send it. So I talked to him and he's like, oh yeah, for sure. We can get you up there. And we took a tour and went to the very top of the Salesforce building and got the thing done. And that's what I mean by being resourceful. Like if you want to get it done, just keep asking. Eventually somebody's going to say yes. Um, and for students, kind of the same thing, man. Advocate for yourself. If you're not getting what you want out of school, ask your teacher, because all the teachers really want to help. The truth is, one of the things that I've learned about education is that all the teachers I've met, and there might be, maybe I've met some that are deadbeats, but they hide it because um, everybody at this school, I know for sure, is very much committed to doing absolutely the most they can for students. And your teacher will do the most they can. And that doesn't mean on the last day of school, what can I do to change my grade from an F to a D? That means like, can you help me with this? What can I do to get some extra credit, maybe a few weeks before the end of the marking period, that sort of thing. Um, Advocating for yourself is something that you've got to learn to do because at some point, nobody's going to do it for you. Right. Yeah. So I don't know. Those would be my takeaways. And not to coach on Nike anymore, but they are going back to the just do it ads. And I really do like just do it. That spoke to me when in the 80s when they came out with it. And the truth is try it first and have somebody tell you you can't do it or fail.
Mhm.
But try it first.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think we're both testaments to that same framework or frame of mind as well. So again, hats off to you. First off, lastly as well, thank you for just the time and your insight and contribution to this conversation as a whole. As I conclude, I just want to share to our listeners, not only a thank you to you as well, but for more stories, behind the scenes content, follow Community on LinkedIn and YouTube. And Community, of course, is spelled CXMMUNITY. If you have a guest idea, we'd love to hear from you as well. But thank you everyone for listening. And Chris, thank you again for your time.
Julian, my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening. For more stories, updates, and behind the scenes content, follow Community on LinkedIn and YouTube. Have a guest idea or topic you want us to explore? We'd love to hear from you. To learn more, visit communityfoundation.org.